Hi guys, just want to thank you so much for watching this video. I'm so excited to talk about mental health and to have this amazing woman next to me, Tamika Grimes, join me to help just bring awareness about this topic. It's very important to me, and it's an incident and a crisis that is arising in our country, and we need to talk about it and bring more awareness about it. So I'm so excited to be able to learn more and bring you all maybe even some information that will lead you to take steps to seek out mental health in your own life. So Tamika, I just wanted to share the statistic that I found to help just validate why this needs to be talked about. So a study found in 2017 that 18.5% of adults in America have a mental health issue, and that is over 43 million adults in a given year have mental health issues. And the number of those people who go untreated is another staggering statistic, but just wanted to let people know that it's very important and it needs to be discussed. So I'm super grateful for people like you who have gone into this field, who have helped to bring awareness about it, but also treat it. And so how did you get into this? Like, what triggered the passion or just called you to this field?
So I feel like this field chose me. I didn't choose it. So I went into undergrad studying sociology, minored in psychology, and during that time I was able to intern at a girls' home. It was a Christian girls' home for girls who were in the foster care system. And so those girls just tugged on my heart. So I was like, okay, I really love doing this and I want to do more of it. And so, well, let me go back a bit. My father he was an outreach minister when I was growing up, so his ministry focused on working with inner city youth. And so I always volunteered in that ministry, helping those little kids. So I've always had a passion for helping people, but I never knew that passion would lead me to the mental health field. So fast forward, I go to college, I meet these young women, and they had a different problems, like parents who had neglected or abused them. They were struggling with mental health, substance abuse problems already at a young age. And so I was just more of a mentor. I wasn't a clinical person at the time, but just a mentor and kind of help them. So when I graduated, I was like, I want to be in the helping field, but I wasn't really sure where I wanted to work. So I kind of was just applying to different places and stumbled across a substance abuse facility and got hired to work with adolescents, helping them to end the cycle of drug abuse and alcohol abuse. So worked in that for a while, but then I decided I needed to go back to grad school so that I could really just learn how to more about mental illness and how to diagnose and so forth. So that's kind of how I got into the field.
And I love how when we have a specific calling, there is personal things that have occurred that kind of lead us there. Like we have intentions to do something else, and then something else kind of reveals a deeper passion inside of us, which is great because you're doing something you're passionate about, and that makes all the world of difference. So that's so cool. And I know that you work in a setting with adolescents right now. And so I just wanted to read the statistic that I found in terms of the current diagnoses that are typical around that age. So according to teenmentalhealth.org, some of the more common mental health issues are major depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, eating disorders, and obsessive compulsive disorders, along with addictions. So what are the more common cases that you see in the high school setting and working with adolescents in terms of mental illness?
I see a lot of depression and anxiety disorder. Anxiety is, and of course the ADHD, the teens who were, typically you're diagnosed with the attention deficit disorders around like elementary age. And there's two types of the ADHD, is the hyperactive type or the inattentive type. And I feel like I know a lot of adults who may have been undiagnosed with it because of the inattentive type can easily be overlooked. But those are the people who they're just easily distracted. They get off focus. They're very forgetful. So those are those, types of people. But yeah, so I see a lot of the depression and anxiety, mostly in the high schools. There are a few teens who abuse, you know, alcohol and drugs. Marijuana is like, they will argue you down about marijuana, which I never try to get into that battle with arguing about something that the teens are really passionate about, because there's a whole kind of marijuana culture that, you know, music, clothing, everything. So, but yeah, that's a lot of what I see is teens who struggle to even come to school or get out of bed.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of them are, you know, saying I can't even come here because I'm triggered by different things, like the lights, or just the panic disorder and anxiety. Just, a lot of struggles.
So that is so interesting, because even more statistics have shown that there has been an increase in severe youth depression. In 2012 it was 5.9, and in 2015 it was 8.2%, and I can't imagine the amount of growth that has occurred even since 2015, and that's according to the Mental Health America. So it says that over 1.7 million youth suffer with major depressive episodes but didn't receive treatment in 2017, and that would be enough to fill every major league baseball stadium on the West Coast twice. So it's really scary to think about if there weren't people like you in the school system, just even being able to get a hold of those who can get treatment, the implications that means for them as adults, or even how they're having to deal with expectations at home, in the classroom, with peers, or if they're in sports related activities or things like that. And it makes me think about habits that are developed starting at such a young age due to them being in these depressive episodes. So super grateful to have people like you in the school system, because they are our future, essentially. I think people can forget that teens will be the next generation that leads this country, and we need to be able to step in and help them, especially when there's so many struggling with that. So in shifting from adolescence, I know you spent, like you said, some time working with adults with addiction. What were some typical like risk factors or triggers that you typically found that led the adults to struggle with addiction, even if it was substance or or not?
So a lot of adults that I've worked with, sometimes their addiction started in their teen years, and it could have been. There are many reasons why people choose to use alcohol and drugs, but it could have been some childhood trauma, or just, finding a way of coping. Maybe you had a parent that abused alcohol or drugs. Sometimes it's genetic, kind of what's in their bloodline. Yeah. And then there are those who are just, they don't really have a reason. They just experimented and they ended up getting addicted. So... yeah, but a lot of them, they kind of started with a milder substance like marijuana or tried alcohol or something, and then it just kind of catapulted in something more stronger. Yeah.
It's so interesting, the different risk factors or things that led to the addiction. It's so closely related to physical illnesses or chronic diseases that people can receive based on risk factors, and how certain things can either increase your likelihood or decrease it. And I think that's something people don't really consider, is how risk factors in their life can influence the mental health state or even your chances of addiction. So it's almost like, let's be concerned about diet and exercise, but also what other things in your life can contribute to a mental health illness or an addiction later down the road. Which is alarming that you say a lot of them started as teens, because it's almost like those are that many teens, 1.7 million, were left untreated. So it's almost like, wow, how many of those, if treated, maybe wouldn't have had that state of addiction. And so I wanted to shift and start focusing more on the minority standpoint of mental health. So in doing more research, I found that according to Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health, African Americans are 20% more likely to experience serious mental health problems than the general population. So what do you think are just some barriers or limitations that block Blacks from having access to therapy or just receiving therapy?
So I think it's a systemic problem, and it kind of starts with some of the cultural biases that we have with mental health. So, whereas people were taught that you don't share your business.
Yep.
You don't, and you're crazy if you need to talk to somebody about what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of some of the traumatic factors it's been a minority in this country, where we've been exposed to trauma at an early age.
Yeah.
And there's various types of trauma, but and it kind of started way back long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Slavery and the civil rights movement. I think Black people, we've just learned to, you just deal with it on your own.
Yeah.
We don't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
We just kind of keep going, but that's when we kind of explode. It's almost like shaking up a soda bottle and then opening it, and that pressure has built up.
Yeah.
And now you're exploding because you haven't dealt with those issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a number of issues.
I know. I feel like it's a topic that it's just a myriad of things. So I think a lot about relying on faith alone. Black people, I feel like, have always been super religious, and faith, like, that's very important in the Black community. So I feel like that can be part of it. Even the mistrust. There's been so much mistrust in the medical field in Blacks, just not even trusting what you have to tell me or prescribing me or giving me. And that translates over to a mental health professional. So I think it is a big issue, but I feel like we got to start talking about it because I feel like it's now affecting generations, because you have developed habits of coping, whether that's an addiction and a substance or not, or a mental health issue that makes you spaz out on your kids or whatever it is, and then that generation is affected in a different way, then they carry that on to their children. And so it's like, do we want change? And if we do, we got to start talking about these things. So what stigmas do you think are associated around therapy with Blacks in terms of what they think when they hear going to a therapist or talking to a counselor that may come to their mind?
Yeah, so one of the first things I usually hear is, who are you going to tell this to? Is this going to be confidential? Am I crazy? Are you going to try to take my kids? I hear a lot of different things dealing with, those are the things they kind of tell you up front. And then there's a lot of shame, like, and telling their stories. Is this, they're embarrassed, like, oh, you probably never heard this before, or I'm ashamed to tell you this. Am I going to be labeled? Because they feel like a mental health diagnosis is labeling them. Are you going to make me be on meds? It's always an assumption that talking to a therapist you're going to be forced to be put on some type of medication or something. So
that's very interesting, because I feel like I've heard a lot of those same things. I'm not crazy, or I'm not going to let a shrink tell me what to do or how to feel, kind of thing. And I feel like even for the males, I've heard, like, it looks like a form of weakness, that you aren't strong enough to carry what you're feeling, and then you got to go and talk to somebody. Why? And so almost challenging that masculinity in that way. And so I wanted to see, in all of these things, what have you seen that's been profound that you've just learned or taken away from working in the mental health field?
So what I've taken away is that, so for me, and I didn't get into this earlier, but I grew up with a few family members who suffered with addiction. And then once I kind of learned more about this mental illness, I realized that some family members also suffered from, like, undiagnosed depression and stuff. But growing up around those people, I didn't know that people could change. And so working in this field, I've gotten to see, like, up front that what mental health treatment can do to help these people, to help people in general. And that's been the most profound thing for me. And I like what you said, change, because I think sometimes if you are suffering from depression or any other mental health illness, you kind of feel stuck when you aren't educated to know that here are practical techniques that can help alleviate whatever you may be feeling and help you to change and start to see life differently. And I think if more people were empowered or knew that or had the treatment, I just imagine what families would look like, what type of things people maybe would pursue in terms of dreams or passions, because they wouldn't have that mental block or limitation there. So I think that's really cool.
even with like working with people intimately in the field that you do, the field that I work in, you're always learning something.
Yeah.
It's like you walk away from work and you're like, that's something I never thought about, or I'm so grateful for this in my life. So I think it's amazing that you were able to connect and see from your family a personal thing and how enduring your job every day can make a difference.
Yeah.
So I want to just talk about like how therapy can be beneficial to people. So maybe people are thinking right at this time like, okay, I'm interested in seeking out a therapist, but how's that going to be beneficial to me?
Okay, so I think the biggest benefit in going to therapy is talking to someone who is not biased. So, you can call up your girlfriend and tell her about your boyfriend and how he's not treating you right. Yep. She cares about you. So she's going to tell you, girl, get rid of him. She's, or she may say something that she already knew about him. Yep. I knew he wasn't going to be good for you. So, and even with your family, like, who can you talk to if you're having issues with a family member?
It's true.
If you talk to another family member, it may go back to them. But this person is completely neutral. He or she, they don't know a whole lot about your family history. Yeah. They're just going based off what you tell them, and they can give you an unbiased opinion or advice. And then also another thing is therapy can be affordable, and people don't know that. So that's another barrier is, can I afford it? Well, either there are places in each state that will do income-based treatment, or you'll or if you have insurance, if you have an employer, you can get EAP assistance where you can get a few visits paid for free from your employer. So, yeah.
There's a lot of options. And I feel like, too, with the benefits, when I've done therapy a couple of times, and I've learned from my experience, I feel like my feelings were validated. Yeah. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm crazy for thinking that, but it's like, let's validate your feelings, but let's get to the root of why you're feeling. And I love how I was always given practical things to apply to help me work through the habit that I had developed to cope with whatever it was. Yeah. And so I feel like I will always be a fan of therapy because it's just proven to work for me in my life and processing through my emotions, which it in turn helped a lot of my relationships too, with friends, with family, things like that. And so you already touched on it. I wanted to just see, because I know for a while before I had a full-time job and had benefits, therapy's price deterred me. Yeah. And so you mentioned a couple of resources that were available. Is there any websites or anything that people can go to maybe search in their area where they can just start tapping into some of those? Yeah. So if you live in you can go to your county website. So let's say, like I live in Gwinnett County. So you can go there and you can look on there and see what mental health resources are available in your area. Okay. So if you're having trouble paying for therapy, I would start with your county. Okay. And then if you have insurance or if you can pay out of pocket, I would go to psychologytoday.com. Okay. And I love that site because you can literally filter out what type of therapist you're looking for. Let's say you're looking for a man or a woman. And if you're looking for a therapist who takes this insurance, if you want them in a specific area, and even you can filter out to whatever your issue is. Like maybe it's family problems or work issues, but you'll see what therapists specialize in that topic specifically that's in your area. And there are a lot of therapists that do work out payment plans, or they'll work with your situation. So I think it's cool too that you have the power with the Psychology Today to find what your needs are instead of someone just telling you go see this person. And is there an option on there maybe if you're religious or if you want that as well to be a part of it? I think that's really cool. It is. You can pick out your specific religion or language. They have because I know when I was working with the court system, people would be court ordered to come to me, but they would not speak a language that I could work with. So I would go on there and look for a therapist with that language in our area. So, which I think is needed because I feel like you maybe can think and process better when you're able to speak your natural dialect instead of trying to process it in a different language. So that's really cool. Yeah. Wrapping up, I just wanted to say that I believe that the public needs to be made aware of this, not only for individual help, but to not treat people who are diagnosed with mental illness a different way. There's someone I know who, insurance sees her being diagnosed with bipolar as a disability, and we got to start educating the public more that these people are not disabled. Like, she works in the medical field and offers medical services. She's very intelligent and smart woman, and I just think that we need to talk about it more, educate people, and people be willing to be open to change their perception of it. And doing more research, I found that we have to talk about it because it's costing us money. It costs America $193.2 billion in lost earnings every year due to people who have mental health illness, either because it wasn't treated or the perception that's given and how people are treating those people that are diagnosed. So we got to start bringing this awareness about, and more people. If you don't know what you want to do, think about going into mental health. There's actually a rise in need of mental health professionals because the need is growing more than what the workers are there to do. And so we need more people to take the stand to go into this calling and help people and help us as a state and a country do better. So thank you so much for sharing your time, your expertise, and just even resources for people to maybe start reflecting on taking this stand to take care of themselves mentally. And I just, hope that everyone takes something from this, share it with somebody, not in an accusatory way, like you struggling with this or you need this, but more so like education and awareness. Maybe they could share with someone else so that we can begin to take care of ourselves in a wellness, holistic point of view, not just our physical body, but our brain as well and where we are mentally. So thank you so much, and I really hope you enjoyed the insights with Miss Tamika Grimes. Have a great one.